What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks again for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about 3 of our stock plays we've been talking about on this channel for a while. I'm going to give you some updates, some insight, and yeah. But before we begin, just remember I am not a financial advisor. I'm a guy on the internet with some opinions, and this is in no way financial advice. I always encourage you to do your own research before jumping into any investment. And while you're here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, hit those comments, tell me what you're thinking. Enough of all that, let's get into it. So guys, one thing I want to remind you of is that on this channel, we are not day traders, okay? We are investors on this channel. I look to invest. I'm not trying to flip stuff. You know, I'm not trying to do a quick flip for a buck here or a buck there or a huge loss, because that's usually what happens if you're day trading and you don't have a lot of information. So I just want to give everybody that reminder before we begin. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the 3 stocks we've been discussing in some past videos and see where we're at as far as updates and see, where we're going. The first stock we're going to talk about is going to be Titan Medical. So guys, the good thing about Titan Medical is they have a good cash position right now, and they are looking into completing their product development this year and then jump into human clinical studies next year, right? So this is a investment, right? A long-term investment. And if you're not sure what Titan Medical is, they basically design robotic single-access surgery units to where it will make surgery less invasive and less costly, which is great. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the key points as far as market opportunity here, in case you're new and you haven't seen any of my Titan Medical videos. So let's just jump into that. So Titan Medical is TMDI on the stock market. That is their ticker symbol. And yeah, so here we go. Based on independent research, the total addressable U.S. surgical robotics market could reach $18 billion, which is a ton of cash. And Titan's trying to pursue gynecology surgical indications, right? So, the woman's private area, I guess they do a lot of surgeries. So there's a $1 billion market in that alone. And they're trying to, get into that market initially and then try to work their way into like other surgeries. But that's basically their initial target because it's a huge chunk of that profit. They don't have a lot of penetration in this market. The robots that do exist, from what I've heard, are typically 3 access points instead of 1. So basically what that does is that makes it so you have, more opportunity for like getting trauma, having scars, because you're accessing at different points. So the bottom point here that I really like is reducing the number of incisions to a single access point may potentially reduce trauma, complications, scarring, healing time, and use of post-operative pain medications associated with surgery. So your recovery time is just maximized, right? Like you won't have to be in the hospital as long. You won't have to be on medications as long, which is good because medications, your organs process those things. You won't have as much scarring. You won't have as much potential for complications from surgery. Like tearing a suture or something along those lines. And then also they talk about post-COVID environment, right, where people are going to be more conscious of healthcare. So these are all just really good points, especially when it comes to, recovery. I don't know if you've had surgery or if anybody watching this video has had surgery. I know it's a little bit of a scary thing. I've only ever really had to be like knocked out and had to be sewn up once. And that was when I was little. I skinned my chin. And the skin was kind of flapped down so you could see my jawbone, which was pretty gnarly. And they had to like basically fix all that up and sew me up. So that was like, other than like my my wisdom teeth surgery, that was my only actual surgery. But surgery can be a pretty scary thing, So I think something like this would be really cool, just making surgery and post-surgery recovery just a lot quicker, a lot less painful. I think recovering from surgery is probably more painful than surgery itself, in my opinion. I mean, I hated when I had to get to get sewed up. I mean, all that stuff sucks. If you've ever been through it, you know how much it sucks. It's painful. So this is awesome. Let's go ahead and hit the next page here. So a couple cool things here, right? Corporate resources. As of the 31st of January of this year, they have cash equivalents of approximately $65.5 million, right? They have a company deal with Medtronic to generate $20 million in license revenue. right? So that's another good thing there. So cash is not an issue with them. They are working on that. Some future company milestones they have to look forward to are the following. So under an ongoing development and license agreement with Medtronic, and with the satisfaction of a certain milestone thereunder, the company expects to generate another $21 million in additional license revenue in 2021. So Medtronic's basically buying licenses from them, right? So good stuff there. And the Enos surgical system, that's the single access surgical system. Over the next 2 years, the company plans to complete product development and tooling for initial manufacturing, right? So essentially, this year is going to be wrapping up like getting the system working correctly. Next year will be the human trials, right? Like, so they'll have a couple of test subjects that they'll run the trials on to see if everything works good, and then they're going to submit their information and their findings to the FDA. And FDA says it's good, then you can take it to the market and you can sell it, and that's when the big bucks start rolling in, right? So this is all really exciting stuff. I would say if you're in TMDI like me, this is a great time to get in because it's just so cheap. The market, $18 billion, no penetration yet. No one's really doing much with it. And the robotics that exist in the market right now, there are 3 access points, and they're not as good as this single access point robot surgery. So this is going to definitely change the way things work. And, just like, Tesla and just like these companies that disrupt other industries, this is going to disrupt current robotic surgery industry, right? And it's a huge industry. It's a lot of money when you're having your body on the line in surgery, right? If a doctor came to you and said, hey, we can make this a little bit less painful. We can make it so it's less invasive, a better chance of recovery, better chance of not getting, a huge complication. You would probably pay the extra money so you didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff, right? So this is all great news, guys. I would say within the next 2 years, we'll have some really positive news. This is why I say I'm a long-term investor, because TMDI is not it's not a quick play. If you're in this for 6 months thinking this thing's going to blow up, you're going to be disappointed, This is one of those early opportunities that really you have to look at and say, is this going to blow up in like a year or two, or is this going to take me 5 years and then just rocket to the moon immediately? Is it going to be like Tesla, where it's kind of like you get in extremely early and then boom, you blow up and your money just quadruples in a overnight? Like Tesla just kind of shot through the roof. But for many years, it wasn't. It was still in that development phase. So that's pretty much what's going on here. All right. So enough of that. On to the next one, guys. So TMDI, if you haven't got it, check it out. Great stock. Hold a lot in it. Position's pretty decent. So I'm going to keep adding to that. Ideanomics. IDEX, right? Not much news around Ideanomics. I have talked about it in the past. They're kind of like a parent company, right? So they have, electric vehicles. They've got fintech. They have that online mortgage lending service where you can basically buy or sell a house through their site. So there's all sorts of different businesses with Ideanomics. It's pretty much like a disruptive tech company. That's really what it is. I mean, there's no other way to really describe it. So Ideanomics just acquired 20% in Energica, which is a electric motorcycle company. And that cost them about $13.2 million, right? And I don't know if you guys ride motorcycles, but I used to ride, man. I used to be a huge motorcycle rider. I would ride almost every day. And I was into the scene, man. I had, my CBR, and it was just really fun. I mean, there's something about motorcycle riding that's just fun, although it is very dangerous, so I will say that. But you know what? Let me get back on track here. I don't want to bore you with any stories or anything, but the cool thing is it's a huge scene. A lot of people buy motorcycles, right? People want power. People want to have that experience. It's a fun thing. So Europe actually has the same amount of growth in their motorcycles as they do with their electric car market, which is ironic. I didn't even think about that. I've been thinking so much about Tesla that I kind of forgot about motorcycles in that aspect. But apparently it's a pretty big market over there. And, they've got, I don't know if you've watched like the Isle of Man TT, like motorcycles in Europe, it's like a huge sport, right? Motorcycle racing is a huge sport around the world. It's like F1, right? It's very popular. People love it. And this Energica company is actually the manufacturer of high-performance electric vehicles, and they're the sole manufacturer of this, I guess this racing series, the FIM NL Moto E World Cup. And that's quite a mouthful. Now, me being a former motorcycle rider, I had to go out and say, okay, well, what's so great about these motorcycles compared to like the big boys, right? The hyper bikes and the really expensive, motorcycles. So, of course, I went and I pulled up the H2R and I did a side-by-side comparison. I had to know. So, on the Energica website, their motorcycles range from about $22,000 to $26,000, which is a lot for a motorcycle. I mean, you could get a used motorcycle for a couple grand if you really wanted to ride. But $22,000 to $26,000, pretty high priced. That's hyperbike territory. Now, in comparison to an H2R, that's pennies, because an H2R is, going to cost you about $55,000. So this is less than double of what an H2R costs, right? Now, the interesting thing about this is an H2R actually has less torque, and these bikes get to 60 faster than a hyperbike. So they are faster, 0 to 60. Now, up top, I don't think you're going to have to, I don't think you're going to be able to compete with like an H2R. So if you're one of those like crazy people who's like, let me hit 200 on a motorcycle, yeah, the H2R is going to be the way to go. It just keeps pulling. It has over 300 horsepower, and over 100 foot-pounds torque. But these bikes will beat it 260. Like, they'll beat it off the line 260. And then they'll get reeled in, and, the H2R will pull and continue on. So as far as performance is concerned, I mean, the H2R, for the money, you're not getting too much more, and you're really only getting up-top performance. You're not going to get that low-end, torquey, fast 0 to 60 performance that people really just like. So this to me is a great deal for motorcycles. I don't know if they're going to ride the same. Obviously, you don't need a clutch. You just need to pull the gas and go. Okay, guys, so that's some pretty good news for Ideanomics. I'm actually pretty excited about that, and I'll probably look into that motor company myself just to see, what they offer. I've thought about getting back into motorcycles, but we'll see if I do. Anyways, on to the next one, and this is the final discussion we're going to have today on this video. We're going to talk about Windtree. So Windtree is Wint. If you look on the stock exchange, you'll see it as Wint with its ticker symbol. And the cool thing about them is, I've discussed them before, they basically handle delivery systems for lung diseases, lung disorders, anything really with breathing, some heart issues as well they tackle, but most of their stuff revolves around fixing lung issues, right? So here's some news here. So Windtree is a biological company, and they have a drug. I'm probably going to butcher it. It's lucinescent. I think that's how it's said. And basically, they're going to try it in adults and do a study on it because I guess with COVID-19, there are some folks who have a lung injury, right? Acute lung disorder, or ADR or ARDS. So any kind of lung disorder, right? And their goal is to see, if it can help relieve or mitigate deficiencies and improve respiratory parameters in these patients, because they've seen some scarring, some damage to people, who were on ventilators. And basically the goal is to help reduce, the patient's time on ventilators and how much time they have to stay in an ICU unit, right? Because if you remember back to when all this started, like the whole pandemic started, you would see that there were a lot of people on ventilators. It was like all over the news, hospitals, ventilators, we don't have enough ventilators, don't have enough beds. And this, this kind of drug in the future, if we ever experience any kind of craziness, if we have a drug or I don't even want to call it a drug, but a treatment that's available to help reduce your, lung damage and things along those lines, then maybe, these kind of pandemics won't be as bad going forward, because you won't have to worry about, being on a ventilator and relying on a mechanical lung for the most part. So this is big news from Windtree. They're really trying to push this forward. And this is why I invest in Windtree, because with the whole, post-COVID world, we're going to have a situation where people will be paranoid, and they're going to want medicines that fix lung issues, right? And not only just, lung issues related to the pandemic, but just other lung issues in general. So this to me is another good investment, guys. If you get a chance, definitely take a look into it if you haven't done so already. But these three stocks, I think they're on the precipice of developing some really interesting technology and therapies. And I can see them blowing up in the future based off of the information that we have on them so far. So, like I said, if you're with me, you're riding long term. We're a fam here. I want to make this a investor community. We're not a day trader community. I'm not going to tell you how to flip GameStop for a buck. GameStop ain't going to be anything in a year. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. So I want you guys to start looking towards your futures and stop worrying so much about your present. Anyways, that's the video, everybody. Thanks for joining me once again. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Peace.